Set your mind on fire. Properties within CSS. We're going to go over text and layout properties in this video. We talked about last time how to select different elements within our HTML and select those in CSS. Today we're going to talk about how we modify those. First we're going to go over some different properties of text, how to kind of style your text how you like it, and then we're going to go over layout. Layout is 100% necessary to understand if you're creating a page using CSS or styling your page using CSS and you want it to look like something different than just text thrown on a white background. So let's move into text and get that out of the way first, and then we can talk about some layout. Text is pretty simple. Pretty much anything you can think of, any property you can think of text, you've got access to that within CSS. We're going to talk about a few of those today. Let's go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and undo something that I did in here and take off some of the styling in here. Now, what I'll do is I'll actually turn that into a class. Alright, so we're all set up. We've got this lorem ipsum here, and what that is just filler text. And I'm using that to kind of show off some different CSS techniques that we can use. I've selected the first letter and the first line, and I'm doing some different things to both of those. I'm coloring the text in the first one, and by how to do that is just to set color is a value. Red is what I chose in this case. You can do any hex value, or you can do any name of a color. Not all names of colors are supported, but there's like tons and tons of them. You can look them up online. There's a whole list of them. Just look up web safe colors. Now we've got properties like line height, font size, vertical align, font family, letter spacing. All of that is different properties about text. Line height is the height of the line. Now don't get that confused with the height of the text. The height of the line can have empty space, and then we can set where that text is aligned with, or where that text is within that line. So like here I'm aligning the text to the top of the line height. So the top of the text hits the top of the line, basically. We've also, so that's vertical align, and what you can see here, vertical align top says it's the top of the line. Line height is here. Now my line height just happens to be the same size as my font size. And font size is, like you would expect, the size of the font. So here I've set it to 24 pixels. I want it to be slightly bigger than the rest of the text. The rest of the text is 18 pixels. So I set that, and then we've got font family. Now font family, there's a few standard fonts within web that we use without without importing anything else. And you can import other stuff through Google Fonts, and it's really, really simple. You just go over to Google Fonts, and I'll jump back. It'll look like this. You can add one to your collection, and then you click Use, and it'll send you to this page, tell you how heavy it is on your page, give you some other information. You can select different sizes of the fonts usually here, and then you can import it with this CSS code. Now, if you're trying to follow along in Cloud 9, you can't do that. You can't use this import feature. So that's why I don't have it set up in here, but that's how you do that. You just copy and paste this line to the top of whatever CSS file you're making. And then using it is really simple. You just hit font family, and then you type in quotes the name of that font, and then you can do comma, and these are backup fonts. So say for some reason that font, it's Caesar dressing, I think. Say for some reason Google Web Fonts is down. The worst has happened. It's the end of the world, and Google Web Fonts is down. So now it needs a backup. It's going to go on to Georgia. Georgia is just a serif font. It comes pretty much standard on any computer, so that's why it's one of these standard fonts that we can use within the web. And if Georgia isn't available on that computer, say it's some kind of weird Linux blend that doesn't have Georgia, it's going to move on to serif. So serif is just the default whatever serif font, and we can also do sans serif, and that'll be a sans serif font. And if you don't know what those are, just look up some typography stuff and learn a little bit about that, because you probably need to know that going into web design anyway. Now, the different fonts we have, the ones that you probably need to know are Helvetica, and I don't know why I'm typing these out, but Arial. And then we got these different names here, like serif, sans serif, and monospace. Now, this would be a very weird thing to see in font family, because you got a mixture of sans serif, monospace, and serif fonts all within there, and you're typically going to want to keep all sans serif fonts together and all serif fonts together, and then monospace is usually just used for code. So you've got font family, and that's pretty easy to understand, but you do have to know like what's available, and typically anymore I import fonts on pretty much any project that I use. So that might be something that you do, maybe not. Helvetica, Arial, and Georgia are the good ones to know, in my opinion. Moving along, we've got letter spacing. Now, kerning is what we're talking about here. Kerning is just the space between, say, this letter and this letter. To do that, we would set the kerning of this L here. So it's whatever the letter spacing of an object is, it's the space past it before it starts the next word. It's kind of like a margin or a padding. So I've set it to 0.1 EM, because without that, we'll take it out, it was kind of hitting the other one. Oh, and I've got this all changed around now. Whoops. See, it was kind of nasty here, so I just set what it is it's letter spacing, and then 1 EM is 1 line height, basically. So we can do 0.1 EM, and that moves it out just enough to make it look pretty. So, and you can do that in pixels too. I just set 0.1 EM just because. Say I want 2 pixels. There we go, just about the same thing. So you've also got font weight. Now you can see like here the B tag will set things to a bold setting, and the I tag sets things to an italic setting. That's going to be font weight. Now italics isn't, we'll get into that. But font weight can be regular, it can be bold. If your font supports it, it can be semi-bold, as well as light or thin. Each font has a number of different options like that. You can also set this to a number. Different fonts have different number weights, like 400 is a standard weight. Typically, I mean, you're just going to use bold if you're doing that. You might use a different one depending on what font you're using. So, and then italics. Italics is going to be text decoration. So we can do, and you can do a number of different ones. Let's say this first letter, say I wanted to underline it. We can do text decoration underline. And that's how that works. There's a number of different properties. You can look those up within the W3 standards as to which properties you can set here. There's a number of different ones. I typically, if I use text decoration, it's normally just underline. So that is really the general basics of text styling within CSS. It's not everything. I didn't get into detail on every little feature that CSS has, because it has tons. So if you want more of that, I'm sure there will be more videos on this page in the future. And if not, you can, or if you want it sooner than that, you can just go look somewhere else on the web. There's plenty of spaces that will tell you more about CSS, but I just want to cover the basics. So now let's talk about layout, and that's what I was doing over here. I'm going to go ahead and take out this data just to make everything look pretty, and then set this back to lorem the ID. So what I'm displaying here is how the box model works within CSS and HTML. Within every div or every layout object, you've got your regular height and width That is kind of the bounding box of your object, which in this one is 20 pixels by 120 pixels. But then you've also got a padding, which is kind of inside of the box. You can think of as like that. You've got a padding, and then you've got a border, which is this green here, and then you've got a margin, which is what pushed this out this way. And you really need to understand that concept of it starts out with just the height and width, and then you add padding, and then you add a border, and then you add margin. That's going to help you tremendously when you're developing web pages. Say you're planning something out within Photoshop. You need to understand, okay, I need to set this much margin, I need to set this much border, this much padding. It's a really important concept to understand. So that's the basics of it. Your background color property is going to cover the padding plus the regular just height and width, and then the border is going to come out past that. So, and you can see that's what's going on here. And padding or margin doesn't display anything; it just pushes things around. So if you have text below your object, if you set margin bottom, which you can see we set margin top here of -80 pixels. That was just kind of a hack to get it to stick back up here. So you can set a margin positive or negative, and you can set that to push that data around. By setting a margin top of negative, I've pulled this data up. Basically, this object that held everything in here was pushing it down. I didn't want to mess with it, so I just said margin dash top, -80 pixels, and it came back up. So think of margin as pushing and pulling, padding as resizing without to create. I'll show you. It's resizing, but it doesn't resize to the edge of the text. Which you can see here. Oh, my first letter's red, so you can't see it. But we've got, and I'll take that off real quick. All right, so we've got a padding dash top of, I think, 5 pixels. Yeah, you can see that right here. And so that's pushed our text down 5 pixels. Say I wanted to put that on the left. It's going to push our text over 5 pixels. So it's resizing the box, but it's also pushing around the text inside of the box. So that's the basics of layout. There's a whole lot more to learn about layout, such as floats. You can do things like float right, and that'll make everything, or make the object fall over to the right. And there's all these different quirks about CSS in terms of layout and things like that, but that's going to be more for advanced CSS layout. This will get you around inside of, if you want to style things in a blog, if you want to just style your posts. Sometimes on forums they allow different little CSS type things. So this is the very, very basics of CSS. If you want to go into advanced CSS, keep checking back on this page. We're going to release a series of videos that goes into how to style a web page. Probably we're going to do how to style a theme for a blog. And go through the CSS, go through the HTML. We're going to go through converting from Photoshop over into HTML, and then creating the CSS to push everything around. And then probably even into some PHP to make it probably a WordPress theme. So keep checking back if you want advanced CSS, but for now that should get you started. Thanks for watching. Please click the subscribe button if you want to keep in touch, or if you want to just be up to date on all the different design basics videos that come out. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.